Ready?
Yeah. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
So, actually, I just want to know, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have just two sisters.
Are you the oldest, or?
I'm the baby.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
the youngest. My
'Cause-
mother also had a son. I think that was born, but he died, I think, when he was a baby.
So you were like pretty young to remember. Was
Yeah.
it after you were born?
Yeah.
This happened? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it was talked about, so
Oh, I see.
never really knew too much about it.
So, when you started working, were your older brothers and sisters already working? Is that why you had to?
Yeah, my oldest sister was working as a nurse's aide in a hospital when I started working. She was about maybe 15 or 16.
Mm-hmm.
Back then you could work as an aide in a hospital. She worked during the time when they did shock treatments in the hospital.
Oh.
So she used to hold people down while they did the shock treatments, and also during the time of the polio. There was a lot of polio back then and a lot of iron lungs.
Whoa.
And my other sister, she worked, I can't even remember exactly what, she married very young, my little sister. So she went off to have...
Like 17
yeah,
or something?
Yeah,
Wow.
very young. And then I was like 12, 13. Actually, my middle sister and I used to babysit together when we were about 12 or 13 because they would hire us. We were very young, but they would hire us because there were two of us. So we did a lot of that together.
You guys have to share the money?
Yep, we did. With my father.
Oh boy, he took a cut
You had
first,
to
huh?
bring it home to Dad. That was the Italian way. You
Wow.
brought the money home to your father.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then when and then I got a little job at the corner grocery store. It was 2 blocks away. His name was Mr. Warren. He had a little, like a bodega today, but it was a little corner store. And he hired me to stock shelves and help him out when I was about 14. I thought it was a real big shot because then he let me start cutting bologna and working in the store and doing a lot of the things that he did. And one time he went off. He lived in an adjacent building to the store, so he went off and he wanted to take the weekend off. So he made me in charge of his store when I'm like 13 years old, and I was really
Were you guys selling tobacco and everything?
Oh, yeah, I was selling everything he had in the store, yeah, writing up credits, because they used to put it on, a lot of people didn't have money, so they put it on a ticket.
Wow.
And then when they get their payday, they'd come in and pay for it.
Wow.
He had a daughter, I can't remember her name, but she was deaf, and she really, really liked me a lot. And my nickname was Sparky back there in high school, and so she called me, she could pronounce my name Sparky.
Oh.
And she would go to deaf school, and then she would come home with homework, and he hired me also to help her with her homework. So I helped her with her homework.
She was the same age as you, or you?
No, she was a little younger than
okay.
me. She may have been, I might have been like 14, she might have been like 8 or 9, something like that. But she got very, very attached to me.
So how much were you making at the store? Like a certain
Maybe
amount
10 cents or something an hour. It was like
Wow.
a ridiculous amount. But I thought, because we could eat some of the candy,
Oh, okay.
we got the free candy and all that stuff.
Good
But,
bonus.
yeah, but then he paid me a little bit for also tutoring or helping his daughter.
And did you have to take all of that home first, like to your dad and everything?
Yeah, everything that pretty much was turned over to my father when we made any money, especially at that age.
Wow.
Later on, I went to, when I turned 16, I think it was 16, the telephone company was hiring. And so I decided I'd go apply for a job there at the telephone company.
As an operator or switchboard
As a
operator?
switchboard operator. That's when we used to have the plug-ins, you had to stand up and plug in. And anyway, I was short, so they didn't want to hire me. Because when you stand
couldn't
up,
reach
you
the
have to
top
be
of
able
the-
to reach the top plug up
board?
there, and I couldn't reach it. So I'd stand on my tippy toes and I'd try to reach it. And I could reach it if I really strained and stand on my tippy toes. And I begged this woman, I begged her, please let me work here. So finally, she decided to give me a try.
So how old were you then?
16.
16, okay.
So anyway, so this was way downtown, so I used to, and she wanted me to work, not part-time, but she wanted me to work full shift. But I was going to school, so I had to get a special permit to get out of school at 1 o'clock so I could work. Well, I got out a little earlier because I worked the shift 1 to 10 every night.
Wow.
And I used to go by myself down to the telephone company. It was just quite a ways away. I just have to take a bus, then get off the bus and walk about 12 blocks home at night. So
This was in Colorado, right?
yeah, this was in Pueblo, Colorado.
Pueblo.
And no, I mean, a couple of nights when I was coming home, I had guys that were like revealing themselves, and then I'd run like hell to get home, you know. And but I worked there, and they took a big liking to me. And then the union decided they were going to have a telephone company queen. So.
Like a spokesperson?
Yeah, just
Like a head of
somebody
the
to
union?
represent the company. And so they asked me if I would be a candidate, and I said no. I was very shy,
Yeah.
very, very shy. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. But they nominated me anyway. So I do have some pictures of me all decked out. I didn't win, naturally. I was very young. Another girl won that had been there a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
But that was quite an experience, balloting and how that's cutthroat, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a campaign?
At 16, I learned real early how work ethic was.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was pretty much up to my years 16, and I worked there for, I guess, a couple of years
Mm-hmm.
because
All that whole time you had to bring all the money back home.
pretty much.
Yeah.
And what I used to, because I never had many clothes when I was younger. My, you know, I always wore everybody's hand-me-downs from the neighbors and whatever. And I always loved fashion. Always wanted to look nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually sneak to the dress shop and sneak and buy a dress and give him, you know, not give him all my money, but just buy a dress, and I had to sneak it in the house, and
Cool.
he could never see that dress.
Otherwise
So,
you knew. So
yeah,
you would know.
right.
Yep.
So it was always like, you know, and then when my father worked the graveyard shifts, so he was gone pretty much in the evening, so I could get dressed up maybe after, you know, he went to work and go to the skating rink or go dancing or something, then wear my new dress.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, where was your mom?
My mother was always sick. She
Okay.
she had a lot of physical problems, a lot of health problems, and she never really, she was there, but she really wasn't, you know, as far as involved in my life that much. She was always in and out of the hospital and always watching. Well, I guess she really, what made her stay sane, even through all this, was she used to crochet and knit a lot, so you could hear her on the porch and that needle clicking away because she was always in a lot of pain.
What did she have? Did she have a...
My mother, when she was a young woman, she had what they call plantar's warts. I don't know if you know, nowadays it's no big deal, I think, but back then it was. This was like, I mean, I was like 10, so this was like in the early 40s. What happened is that her heels became infected and became like an open sore on her whole heel, which looked like rotten hamburger. It was horrible, horrible stuff. And so they thought that they didn't know how to treat her, and they took her they took her in, a lot of different doctors experimented on her. And what they would do is, one time my mother was sitting in her wheelchair and she started screaming, and we ran over there and maggots were coming out of her bandages.
Oh.
So they would apply this stuff to that raw place on her heels and to eat the dead flesh. And another time I remember going to the hospital with her, and they wanted to cut off her legs because they thought it was cancer and they didn't know what to do. So they put her in this, what they call radium oven or something like that, and they put radium through her whole body. So from that point on, she was always had something wrong with her. She'd sit and hold her mouth and cry, and she'd say, look in my mouth, look in my mouth. See all the sores? And there's nothing in there. Couldn't see anything with the pain, you know, like a blister or a sore or anything in her mouth. She could just feel the pain. So through her whole life, it was in and out of the hospital, in a wheelchair. We used to have to, when I was a little tiny girl, we used to have to do all the grocery shopping. We'd have to do the laundry. We'd have to hang clothes. We'd get a chair and put it by the clotheslines, and we'd hang the clothes. And we'd go down to the grocery store, and this guy that owned the grocery store would take us home in his pickup truck with the groceries. And so we had a hard life growing up. I didn't never have any really personal contact with my mother as that much. I never remember like her holding me or kissing me or hugging me. And my father was always working. He was always working. He worked at a cemetery in the day, and then he worked for the railroad at night.
Wow.
So you're pretty much independent on your own, you know.
Except for your older sisters, maybe.
Yeah, well, my older sisters couldn't wait to get out of the house, so they married very young. And my oldest sister married very young, and so did my other sister. In fact, I did too, I guess. I was 17
Oh, wow.
when I married.
Wow. So you worked
that,
for like 2 years at this telephone company, and then you got married.
right, and then
Okay.
I got married. And then I started my married life.
Want to pause?
I'll go over there.